I'm going to start by trying as briefly as I can to operationalize what democracy is, but also participation. Then I say a little bit about the historical evolution of democratic participation. Then say a little bit about the dividends and setbacks of the democratic processes. Then look at how, where we can participate as youth, and then draw my conclusion. I always start this with a very important elaborate quotation from John Adams to John Taylor, which was written in 1814. Two of remarkable US founders of the United States modern democracy. And in that particular letter, John Adams wrote to John Taylor. He stated, and I quote him, that remember, democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. There never was a democracy yet that did not commit suicide. And basically, this speaks to the fact that democracy self-regulates itself, democracy grows itself, and democracy can commit suicide by itself. And basically, when we talk about democracy, attributing or personifying democracy, we are actually referring to the role that we, the citizens, play in the democratic processes. We can waste it, we can exhaust it, and we can murder it. The only way we can let democracy self-sustain and not commit suicide is to participate regularly in the democratic processes. So it is a very commonly used concept, though very diversified in terms of interpretation. But suffice to say that it's from the two Greek words, demos and kratos. This is Poly 101 for political science students. So basically, democracy translates as government of the people or government of the majority in the writings of Becker and Wilson. But as a system of government, democracy is not like monarchy, and it's also not like theocracy or autocracy or anarchism or all the other systems of government, simply because power, authority, decisions in the democratic processes should be exercised by the people for the benefit of the people and to serve the interests of the people. So when you conceptualize democracy this way, we can actually practice it as a system of government where it may be done directly like it used to be in the 5th, 4th century BC in the city-state of Athens, or it is presented representationally as we have now in our current modern system. But it can also be conceptualized ideationally. In terms of ideology, we are looking at the liberal system of government, which is the liberal democratic system of government, the majoritarian system of government, the electoral system of government, and all the other systems. I think about 18 of them. But what is more remarkable is the fact that in each of these ideological influence, definition, or operationalization of democracy, there is a role of participation of the citizen. Whether you are looking at it from electoral democracy, where we are supposed to vote in competitive elections to select our leaders, or when you are looking at it in terms of what? The liberal democracy, where citizens will have to participate in upholding the rule of law, but also in preserving civil liberties of the people. Or when we look at it in terms of majoritarian democracy, basically the majority of the people in this country constitute the youth, and youth participation in decision-making process will make the youth interest sustained. Or when we are looking at it in terms of consensual democracy, consensus building is done by the people, and where the people fail to agree, will never be able to have consensus. When you look at it from the perspective of participatory democracy, it highlights how we, the citizens, participate in the ritual of voting, but also in attending occasions of this kind, where democracy, good governance, and participation are discussed, or attend party rallies or social movement or public hearings, where the interests of the citizens are likely debated. When it's about deliberation, we deliberate, we the youth deliberate. Basically, it's the act of citizens to participate in the decision-making process with the intention to shape the outcome of that processes to favor their interests. And when it comes to egalitarian democracy, it's more about we citizens participating and deciding that not only monetary wealth or monetary compensation can lead to the respect of people's rights, but it should also be about what? Economic value. So it should not largely just be social, civic, and political rights. It should also be what? Economic and social rights. And once we are able to advocate this and stand for it and fight for it, we'll be moving towards a democracy that allows people to live a better, cherished life. So the democracy, the system of government that we call democracy, is built on stages. And in each of these particular stages, whether you are looking at it from a regime that is non-democratic to a regime that is conflicted, paradigmatic, or consolidated, the issue of participation is very important. And participation is actually used to define the levels that we are looking at. So when you look at the first typology, there is zero participation. It's not that citizens don't have the ability to participate, but the level at which they participate brings very little influence to what they seek to do. But when you move to the second level, there is a periodic participation, i.e. election. So we vote once every 4 years. You always want to vote and wait till the next 4 years to vote, or there are other opportunities for you to participate in the decision making. So the expanded regular participation actually deepens the democratic processes. And it's the same thing when we look at it from the democratic consultation stage. There is not only regular participation, but there is also an imbibed democratic values and democratic ethics. And we build democratic values and democratic ethics by constantly participating to shape the decision-making processes. So participation, to the extent that when we move to the highest level of democratic consolidation in democracies, it amounts to citizens' empowerment and citizens' ownership. So we, the youth, must decide what happened in this country through our numbers, through constructive, deliberative dialogue and engagement with duty bearers to be able to realize what we want. So a sustained democratic engagement aimed at making lives better for everybody through citizens' power is the best system of government that we can have. Participation suggests a level of involvement in the process, in an activity, or in the decision-making process. So collectively, when the public participate in decision-making process, the intention is actually aimed at what? Addressing the concerns, needs, and interests of the people, and making sure that the values that those people stand for are incorporated into decisions that affect our lives. But this is not the first time that this has been done. As far back as the 5th, 6th century BC, participation was a very important process that shaped and conditioned governance processes. And you see this as far back as civilizations from the Athenian democracy, where the ecclesia was seen as one of the most important avenue where citizens directly participated in decision-making processes. So largely people who were of 18 years old had the ability to participate in the democratic process. But moving forward, it was not just consensual at that particular level, but it also highlighted the fact that people have the power, if the opportunities are given to them, to be able to speak with their needs and influence the decision-making process to favor the realization of those needs. And this has also been happening in Africa. So Robinson wrote about tribal democracies or campfire democracies in Africa. We sometimes refer to it as discussions under the baobab tree or the baobab democracy, where people would meet and be able to decide based on their challenges, grievances, and needs, what they need to do moving forward. Not only in the city-state of Athens or in Africa, but this also happened in the Middle East, in ancient kingdoms as old as the Hittite Old Kingdom, as far as the Middle East, and across the continent of the world. So basically, participation has been very instrumental, and they have evolved over time. But when we participate, what do we seek to achieve, and how do we participate? So there have been a lot of assumptions that govern citizens' participation. And the first assumption includes the fact that participation is and should be led by the government. So we always think that once the Minister for Sanitation doesn't call us to come and talk about sanitation issues, they will not talk about sanitation issues. Or once the president doesn't call us to come and talk about sanitation issues, we'll talk about sanitation issues. In actual fact, participation is, though mostly government-led, can also be initiated by citizens and civil society organizations. So we should not always wait for government to tell us to come and talk them before. We can self-initiate participation through coming together, looking at our problems, challenges, presenting a position paper to the sector minister or to the MP and see that in our constituency, these are some of the challenges that we realize we are facing. And this is how we want to support you to be able to help us address those challenges. So participation is not always or should not always be government initiated. Most often than not, that's the case. But we citizens can also initiate participative processes. The second assumption is that participation is and should be periodic and temporary. That is what people assume. But in most cases, participation can be one-off event. But in most cases, it should be regular, it should be conventional, and repeatedly guaranteed by law, so that at every point in time, citizens will have the right and the ability and the power to participate. The third assumption is that citizens do not want to actively participate in the work of government. So sometimes governments say, oh, when we call for them to come and talk, nobody is willing to come. So people are not willing to participate. So we just do it the way we think is right. But in reality, citizens increasingly now express more desire to engage in public problem solving and have more capacities and skills to be able to do so. The fourth assumption is that citizens do not understand their individual needs and interests. And for that matter, if they are allowed to participate, they will rather speak to personal interests rather than public consent. In actual fact, participation can provide citizens with the information they need to assess their own needs and interests, as well as the needs and interests of others. And indeed, in doing so, citizens can become more aware and to broader public concerns. So there are different levels of participation, and the simplest we can do is what we call manipulation of therapy, where the youth are actually hijacked by people of personal interest or collective interest, and they are made to express those interests as if they were trying to represent the interests of the citizens. So now participation, whether it's therapy or people just being consulted and their views are not incorporated into the decision-making process, all constitute aspects of participation that we technically think is not participation. But the highest level of participation in the level of things, especially with Einstein's scheme, is what we call citizens' power, where the citizens have the right to initiate, sustain, and achieve what they want to achieve in life for themselves and for those yet unborn through sustained engagement. So basically, one of the best systems of government that participation can be realized is what we call democracy. And democracy, as we all know, is not static, but it is a continuous evolving enterprise. And as an evolving enterprise, it always has to be checked, reinvented, corrected, modified to be able to get the kind of desired results that we want. And without participation, we'll not be able to do that. And it must also be realized that direct participation is a universal human impulse. We all have the urge to participate, but sometimes you are either deceived or just resent your fate and think that even if I do, I'll make any change. Why don't you just try? So whenever there's an impulse for you to speak to something or say something, it means there is a natural invitation that you need to participate, and we must also do that. And cultures, regimes, civilizations have become better because people have responded to this natural impulse and participated in the decision-making process. We are capable of deliberation as citizens, we are capable of problem solving as citizens, and we are capable of self-governance as citizens. And that opportunities we must seize. So basically, how do we deeply get involved? One of the best ways is to empower and activate existing leadership, infrastructure, and networks. So at the university level, if you are the Hall of Presidents and you want to make change, every floor has a floor work. We have the whole parliament, we have the whole GCR leadership, we have the XRC leadership and committees, we have the Dean of Students Office, we have the Vice Chancellor's office, the Pro Vice Chancellor, ASC, Pro Vice Chancellor, always. So there are laid down structures. We have a member of parliament as a constituency. We have various leaders and elected public officials that we can use to escalate challenges that we face and to be able to participate. But beyond that, we have public servants, ministries, sectors, local government officials, our assembly members, our elected public officials. Those are even schools, police service, headmasters, government agencies, librarians. These are all agents of what? Participation. And we must empower them and use them appropriately when the need arises. We have civic leaders, opinion leaders in our societies. These are people, chiefs, opinion leaders, family heads, that we can, religious leaders that we can speak to and then make advances towards if we think there are issues that we need to be addressed. And we cannot, or we are afraid to start or initiate the conversations around them. But we also have professional groups. In the university, we have lecturers, we have doctors, we have people that are of high trust and respect in society that we can speak to be able to get these things addressed. So one of the roles we can play is to become conveners for platforms where people can be able to ventilate their grievances, register their grievances to you, to be able to amplify or articulate it. But we can also become organizers for public events of that kind that allow people to be able to participate. We can even become funders or donors. We can do crowdfunding to be able to fund very important issues that we think provide the youth the opportunity to be able to participate in the decision-making process. So one of the ways we can do it is to also use existing building blocks. There are a lot of social media groups that we all belong to. There are a lot of data and information available on social media about participation. We can gather those information, we can do leaflets, we can do pamphlets, we can educate people about how to participate and the benefits of participation. We can participate in discussing platforms on TV, radio, and other networks. And wasting this year, you can get your slot on for morning show, the coveted program to be able to air reviews. We can also provide opportunities for small-scale decision-making processes, organizing student conferences, organizing student deliberative forums and public forums on campus to allow people to be able to speak. In all, we can never be able to achieve a good result if we are not willing to participate. We are all gifted in a way, and we only let people benefit from those gifts if we participate, shape, and reform, and move forward our democracy. I thank you so much.